The night my husband tried to erase me from my own life started with chandeliers, champagne, and the illusion of love polished to perfection. Marigold Estate looked like something out of a magazine, spread crystal lighting dripping from the ceiling. A jazz band warming the air with velvet notes, waiters gliding past with silver trays. Everyone was smiling, the kind of smile people reserve for expensive events. Wide, rehearsed, hollow. I was seated in the front row, wearing a champagne satin dress that shimmered each time the light caught it. I remember thinking it was the most beautiful dress I'd worn in years, and how strange it felt that beauty could tighten around your ribs like a warning. Ethan stepped onto the stage. He didn't take my hand, didn't kiss my cheek. He didn't even glance at me the way husbands usually do before making a speech. He just grabbed the microphone, straightened his tie, and waited for the room to fall silent. When it did, he looked right at me. Through me. "Lauren," he said, in a voice smoother than the music behind him. "I wish I'd never married you." A collective gasp rolled through the room. A waiter dropped a fork. Someone in the back whispered, "Is this part of the program?" It wasn't. I knew it wasn't. Not when Ethan set the microphone down with surgical care. Not when he walked off stage without blinking. And not when he brushed his fingers gently, intimately against the hand of a woman standing near the exit, her face half hidden by shadows. They slipped out together. The live stream camera followed. So did 100 confused eyes. I didn't move at first. Shock can be louder than any scream. But I stood up, smoothed my dress, lifted my chin, and told the room, "Please enjoy the evening." I walked out to the hallway, where flashes from phones hit me like tiny explosions. Someone was already uploading the clip. Someone else was whispering he planned it, rehearsed it. They didn't know how right they were. Because humiliation wasn't Ethan's goal. It was only step one. And I hadn't even discovered the trap he built for me. Not yet. But the night he tried to end my story was the same night I learned something stronger. Revenge doesn't begin with anger. It begins with clarity. 6 years before the night everything shattered, my life looked nothing like Marigold Estate. No chandeliers, no live stream cameras, no gold-rimmed champagne flutes lined up like soldiers. Just a cramped one-bedroom apartment that smelled faintly of cheap vanilla candles and dry erase markers from my classroom. I was a 4th-grade teacher back then, the kind who saved handwritten notes from students and cried over books where the dog dies at the end. My days were simple, predictable, good, even. I woke up before sunrise, brewed grocery store coffee in a chipped white mug, graded spelling quizzes at my tiny kitchen table, and walked the 3 blocks to school while the city was still quiet. I wasn't rich, but I was steady. I wasn't glamorous, but I was grounded. I had a life that fit me like a favorite sweater. Worn in, soft, familiar. And then I met Ethan Cole. It happened at a literacy fundraiser my friend Riley dragged me to because she said I needed adult air after a breakup that had made me swear off dating apps forever. I wore a navy dress I'd owned since college, one of those safe dresses you keep because it has never betrayed you. Ethan wore a suit that wasn't expensive but looked like it wanted to be. He spoke that night about education and community building with a passion that felt strangely real. Not flashy. Not performative. When he found me afterward near the dessert table, holding a brownie like a shield, he asked what I taught. And then he listened. Actually listened. Most men nodded politely when I talked about teaching, like they were waiting for a commercial break. Ethan held eye contact. Asked follow-up questions. Made me feel like my world mattered. That's the cruelty of it, I guess. The beginning always feels honest. We became inseparable fast. Too fast, maybe. But at the time it felt like gravity. He brought takeout to my apartment late at night, telling me stories about zoning meetings and impossible clients. I told him about my students, about little victories, like when a struggling reader finally finished a chapter book. He called me his calm, his balance, the good thing in his life. For a while, that felt true. Our first home together was a small townhouse with creaky floors and a balcony barely big enough for 2 chairs. But that balcony became our ritual. Sunday mornings with coffee, newspaper pages rustling, our knees touching under the small table. We didn't have money, but we had something better: ease. The kind of ease you don't know you'll miss until it's gone. Looking back, I can see the shifts, the small cuts, The first signs. They didn't feel like red flags, more like pink ones, soft, watered down, easy to ignore, like when Ethan started staying later at the office. "Just one more meeting," he always said with a tired smile. Or when he brought home documents and asked me to sign because it's just standard paperwork, babe, boring stuff. At first, I skimmed. Later, I didn't even do that. I trusted him. Isn't that what marriage is supposed to be? Then, there were the parties. At first, they were tiny things, barbecues with friends, birthday dinners. But when Ethan's business grew, the gatherings changed. Bigger, louder, more expensive, less about people and more about being seen. The first time we attended a real estate networking gala, I wore a dress Riley helped me pick out. The fabric clung too tightly, and the heels blistered my toes within an hour. But I smiled through it because Ethan looked so proud introducing me. "This is my wife, Lauren," he said, beaming. "She keeps me sane." People laughed, complimented him, complimented us. I believed them. But after that night, our life started slipping quietly into something colder. Ethan traded genuine affection for grand gestures, bouquets the size of toddlers, fancy dinners, where he spent more time talking to investors across the room than to me. He stopped asking about my students. He stopped noticing when I was tired. He stopped noticing me. The townhouse was replaced by a 4-bedroom house with gleaming white countertops and a kitchen island so big it looked like a stage. I used to sit there with a cup of coffee and stare around, feeling like I'd stepped into someone else's life. Even Riley noticed. "Lo," she murmured one night over wine. "Are you sure you know everything about his work?" I laughed it off. She let it go, but her eyes didn't. Maybe that's when the fractures began. Small hairline cracks in a marriage polished for display. But the biggest shift, the one I still replay late at night, was when Ethan stopped looking at me the way he used to. Not with admiration, not with tenderness, but with assessment. Like he was measuring me against some checklist I didn't know existed, a checklist I was starting to fail. The year Ethan's business exploded was the year I began disappearing from my own life. It didn't happen overnight. It never does. Disappearance is a slow erosion, quiet, polite, almost graceful if you're not paying attention. And back then, I wasn't paying attention. I was too busy cheering him on, too busy being proud, too busy believing we were still the same two people drinking Sunday coffee on a tiny balcony. Our new house sat in a neighborhood where everyone's lawn looked professionally airbrushed. The front door was heavy, expensive wood, the kind that made a soft thud when it closed final, echoless, like a vault ceiling shut. Inside, everything gleamed. Marble counters, polished floors, curated decor chosen by an interior designer who acted like my opinions were mere suggestions. "It's a more elevated aesthetic," she told me once while adjusting a vase. I'd moved 2 inches to the left. "Your old furniture just didn't match the space." I laughed politely, but something about the way she said "your old furniture" felt like an accusation. Like I didn't belong in the life Ethan was building. Maybe I didn't. Ethan thrived in the new world, schmoozing investors, flying to New York for meetings, attending events at places where I felt like a misplaced extra in someone else's movie. He could talk for hours about land development, interest returns, equity partners. I could talk about a kid in my class who finally learned long division. Guess which topic held a room's attention? Our marriage turned into a performance, and he was the star. At parties, I smiled on cue, laughed in the right places, complimented the right people. I wore dresses that cost more than my rent used to be. My mother visited and walked through the house like it was a museum. "Lauren, honey, your father would have been so proud," she said, trailing her fingers over the marble island. "Ethan's providing such a beautiful life for you." I nodded. I wanted to believe it. I wanted her to be right, but I missed the squeaky floors of our old townhouse. I missed the diner where the waitress knew my usual order. I missed the woman I used to be, someone who wore flats to work and thought happy meant simple. The irony is that the first real warning didn't come from Ethan. It came from someplace buried deeper. My father's death. He died when I was 16 in what my mother always described as a tragic construction accident, the kind of phrase people use to avoid the specifics. For a long time, I accepted it. Teenagers don't question what hurts, they survive it. But now, living in Ethan's world of permits and property lines and shady development deals, memories floated back up. Hushed conversations in my childhood kitchen, my uncle cursing under his breath about those damn developers, and a name I had heard once and forgotten, Marco. At the time, it meant nothing. Later, it would mean everything. But I didn't know any of that the day things truly shifted. It was a Wednesday night, ordinary, forgettable. I got home from school exhausted. My feet hurt. My hair was frizzing from rain. I walked into the kitchen and found Ethan on the phone, speaking in a low, clipped tone I'd never heard before. "No," he snapped, pacing. "She doesn't know anything. Just handle it." I froze. He turned, saw me, and his face rearranged itself instantly calm, warm, polished. "Hey babe, just work stuff." Work stuff. The two words that had slowly taken over our marriage like mold you don't notice until it's everywhere. I told myself it was fine. Normal. Married life, right? You don't always understand each other's jobs. But then came the documents, contracts, agreements, financial forms that looked deceptively simple but spanned 10 pages of tiny text. He'd slide them across the kitchen island with a pen. "Sign here. And here." "What is this for?" I asked once. "It's routine," he said. "You don't need to overthink it." The tone stung more than the words. Overthink. Like I wasn't capable of understanding. Like my questions were inconveniences. I signed. Of course I signed. He was my husband, my partner. You don't assume the man you share a bed with is slipping a noose around your neck one signature at a time. Then came the business trips, longer, more frequent. He started returning home smelling like cologne that wasn't his. He changed his passcode. He took calls in the garage. He stopped touching me absent-mindedly the way he used to. One night, while he was away, I found myself sitting at the giant kitchen island with a cup of cold coffee and realized something terrifying. I couldn't remember the last time we had laughed together. Not smiled. Laughed. The kind of laugh that tightens your stomach and makes your eyes water. The kind we used to have all the time in the townhouse. Our life had lost its sound. That was the first real grief. Riley saw it before I admitted it. "Lo," she said during one of our late-night calls. "You don't sound like you anymore." "I'm fine." I lied. But deep down, something inside me was already bracing for impact. I just didn't know the blow would come in front of 100 strangers under golden lights, and that the impact wouldn't break me. It would wake me up. I didn't sleep the night after the anniversary party. I didn't cry either. My body felt too stunned for tears, like grief had frozen somewhere beneath my ribs. I sat at the kitchen island, the same place where Ethan once made me pancakes, the same place where I'd signed documents I never understood, and stared at the dim reflection of myself in the black window. At 3:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Riley. "Lo. Call me. There's something I should have told you earlier." I didn't call. I couldn't hear another apology, another half-truth. Not yet. Instead, I set the phone face down and let my mind run the way it hadn't been allowed to in years. You don't humiliate your spouse in public without a reason. You do it when you need witnesses. The sentence dropped into my chest like a stone. That was the moment the shock cracked open and clarity flooded in. Ethan's cold eyes, the calculated tone, the perfectly timed silence, that wasn't a breakdown. That was an opening statement. He wasn't leaving me. He was framing me. My hand steadied. My heartbeat slowed. A strange, icy calm replaced the confusion. For the first time in a long time, I felt fully awake. At 6:02 a.m., as sunlight crept across the kitchen tile, I made the first move. I called Jenna Moore, my old college roommate, turned divorce attorney. Sharp, unforgiving, the kind of woman who could smell a lie from 3 rooms away. "Jenna," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "I need you. Now." Then came the rules, my rules. Rule 1. No more confrontation. Silence is leverage. Rule 2. Every document gets copied in triplicate. Rule 3. Don't run. Withdraw strategically. Rule 4. Trust no one who still answers Ethan's calls. Rule 5. Never let him see me break again. By the time the sun fully rose, my plan was already taking shape. strip the finances apart, uncover whatever he'd buried, and build my own case before he could finish writing his version of the story. Ethan thought he'd ended the marriage at that microphone. He had no idea I'd just started a war. The morning after I called Jenna, my house felt like a crime scene. Not because anything had been broken or ransacked, but because everything was too clean, too arranged, too intentional. It made me wonder how many of those polished surfaces and perfect corners hid something rotten underneath. How many of those picture frames held moments I'd believed were real, but now looked like props in a performance I hadn't realized I was cast in. Jenna arrived at 9:14 a.m. in black slacks, a navy blazer, and the same expression she wore during mock trial competitions back in college. The one that said, "I will burn this place down if I have to." She hugged me once. Quick, firm, businesslike. Then she stepped back, scanned my face, and said, "Tell me everything." I did, not with tears or shaking hands, but with the same numb clarity that had settled over me the night before. The gala, the mic, the woman near the exit, the live stream. Ethan's cold, calculated delivery, how he walked away without a flicker of remorse. Jenna didn't interrupt. She didn't gasp or look shocked. She simply listened, eyes narrowing, jaw tightening with the laser focus of someone mentally rearranging chess pieces. When I finished, she exhaled once through her nose. "Okay," she said. "First step, we secure your position. Second, we dismantle his." That was the moment my reclamation began. Not with rage, not with tears, but with strategy. We headed straight to Ethan's home office, something I hadn't stepped into in months, maybe longer. The air inside felt colder, heavier, like a room that didn't want to be entered by the wrong person. The desk was pristine, too pristine, but the drawers told stories. Jenna snapped on latex gloves like she'd done this hundreds of times, and maybe she had. She pulled out file folders while I photographed every page with my phone. Contracts, investment packets, deeds, tax forms. Some documents looked ordinary maintenance agreements, partnership summaries. Others felt wrong, rushed signatures, my name written in handwriting that looked eerily like mine, but just a touch too perfect, like someone had practiced copying it over and over. "Lauren," Jenna said quietly, holding a page up to the light. "This isn't your signature." A chill crept along my neck. "No," I whispered. "It's not." That was the first crack in Ethan's facade, tiny, but undeniable. At 11:03, Jenna made a call. Within an hour, a man in his late 30s with rolled-up sleeves and a calm, intense demeanor knocked on my door. "Noah Ellis," he introduced himself. "Forensic accountant." I'd never met a forensic accountant before, but Noah carried himself like a surgeon, focused, precise, slightly intimidating. He set up at my kitchen island, opened his laptop, and said, "Show me everything you found." We did. And as he scanned through the files and PDFs, his expression changed slowly but unmistakably from neutral analysis to something darker. When he finally looked up, he said, "Your husband isn't just hiding money. He's routing it." "Routing it where?" I asked. "Offshore," Noah replied. "Through LLCs that don't actually own anything, and through properties that barely exist." A quiver of anger ran through me, not hot anger, but cold, metallic anger. The kind that doesn't explode, the kind that sharpens. "Can you trace it?" I asked. Noah's eyes flickered almost a smile. "Already started." While he worked, Jenna and I moved through the house collecting every document, every stray receipt, every post-it with a scribbled phone number. We filled 2 boxes and scanned everything. Noah organized files into digital folders labeled with things like suspicious expenditures and shell companies, possible intent. Each label felt like another layer peeling off the life Ethan had built. By afternoon, Jenna was drafting separation paperwork, and Noah had assembled a preliminary financial map that looked more like a spider web than a marital portfolio. That's when Jenna paused and said, "We'll need eyes on him, real ones." Enter Sam Rivas. Sam was nothing like the stereotypical private investigator. He didn't wear a trench coat or smoke cigarettes or lean dramatically against door frames. He wore jeans, a gray hoodie, and a camera bag slung across his chest. "You're the one who married the real estate guy?" he said, giving me a sympathetic nod. Rough week, huh? Understatement of the year. Sam got to work immediately. Installing a tracking system Jenna assured me was legal, but uncomfortably close to the line. He followed Ethan that very night, and the texts started arriving the next morning. Photo after photo. Ethan walking into a boutique hotel with a woman whose hair shimmered under the lights. Jordan Blake. The same woman I'd glimpsed only briefly the night he humiliated me. The same woman who had hovered near the exit, the one he'd reached for. Sam sent timestamps. Room numbers. Frequency patterns. Tuesdays, Thursdays, every week. 47 documented visits. That was the first time my stomach didn't drop. It tightened, sure. Twisted, but didn't drop. Because it all suddenly made sense. The coldness, the secrecy, the mic in his hand, the way he walked off like he had someplace better to be. He didn't want to leave me. He wanted to replace me cleanly, neatly, publicly. And the business partner? I asked Sam. DeLuca? His expression shifted. Yeah, I've got him too. More photos. Ethan and Marco meeting in dim parking lots near the waterfront. Walking through industrial buildings. Inspecting sites that looked more like abandoned warehouses than legitimate projects. Jenna leaned over Sam's shoulder. This is enough to make the feds interested. My breath caught. You think this is federal? Noah, still working at the island, didn't look up when he answered. Oh, it's federal. That night, after Jenna left and Noah promised more updates, I sat alone in the living room. But it wasn't the same as the night before. The silence didn't feel suffocating this time. It felt strategic, like the quiet before a move in a game. I finally understood. I sipped a cup of coffee I made for myself, a small act, but symbolic. Ethan used to make it. He'd hand it to me with a kiss and a smile I now realized had been fading long before I noticed. I set the cup down and looked around the immaculate room with its expensive furniture and cold lighting. This isn't my life anymore, I whispered. And for the first time, the room didn't argue. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. Not because of anxiety, not because of heartbreak, but because something inside me had finally clicked into place. I wasn't the trembling woman in the champagne dress anymore. I wasn't the wife waiting for explanations that would never come. I wasn't the one tiptoeing around Ethan's moods or schedule or carefully curated life. I felt like a ghost stepping back into my own body. At 6:40 a.m., I carried a stack of files to the kitchen island, my new war room, and sorted them by category: fraud, investments, property, shell corporations, suspicious withdrawals. Every folder felt like another brick in the foundation of a case I hadn't even known I was capable of building. Around 9 a.m., Noah returned, laptop under his arm, eyes already scanning the room like he expected the furniture to confess something. I dug into the offshore accounts, he said without greeting. It's worse than I thought. He projected a spreadsheet onto my TV. Lines of numbers, columns of dates, arrows connecting transactions like arteries. He's been siphoning money for years, Noah said. Using your name, your credit, your signature. My signature, I repeated, cold settling into my bones. He clicked zoom, and there it was. A perfect imitation of my handwriting on a loan authorization document for a property in New Jersey I'd never heard of. The signature looked so real, I almost doubted myself. Lauren, Noah said quietly. He practiced this. Over and over. You can see the muscle memory consistency. My throat tightened, not with sadness, but with a sick realization. Ethan hadn't stumbled into this. He'd planned it, prepared for it, prepared for me. Noah must have seen something in my face, because he added, "We'll prove it. Everything. You won't go down for his crimes." But that wasn't enough for me anymore. I didn't just want to avoid going down. I wanted the truth to rise. By noon, Jenna had joined us again. She reviewed Noah's findings with the kind of focus that made the room feel colder. "We move fast," she said. "Before he realizes you're not passive." Passive. That word used to describe me too easily. Not anymore. "First step," Jenna continued, "you separate financially. Immediately." That meant going to the bank. I drove myself, no chauffeur, no pretense, no Ethan standing beside me like my shadow. The bank manager looked surprised when I requested a full audit of our joint accounts. "Is Mr. Cole joining you today, Mrs. Cole?" "No," I said, voice calm and even. "Just me." He hesitated. "This is unusual." I leaned forward slightly. "So, is what I found in his office." 5 signatures later, I had transferred half of everything remaining into a brand new account under my name only, not much, far less than what should have been there. But it was enough. Enough to move, enough to survive, enough to fight. When I walked out of the bank, the air tasted different, sharper, cleaner, like I'd been underwater for years and had finally surfaced for breath. Next came the house. Jenna connected me with a realtor named Linda Harper, a woman with sharp eyeliner and no patience for nonsense. She toured the house quickly, heels clicking across the polished floors. "You want a fast listing?" she asked. "Yes." "You willing to drop the price by 15%? "Yes." "Good," she said, snapping photos. "You're doing the smart thing. Men like Ethan, they only care about the asset until someone else controls it." By 3 p.m. that same day, the house was online. By 6 p.m., we had 3 offers. Ethan didn't know yet, but he would. And when he learned, it would be the first domino. That night, I packed a single suitcase, clothes, toiletries, important documents. I left behind the designer dresses he bought, the jewelry he gifted, the handbags still wrapped in paper. They belonged to the version of me he curated. I wasn't taking any of her with me. I rented a small 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of the city, the kind of place that smelled like old curtains and neighborhood cooking. I loved it instantly. The silence wasn't heavy like the big house. It was peaceful, familiar, mine. I spent my first night sitting on the hardwood floor, eating takeout lo mein from a plastic container. And it tasted better than any catered dinner Ethan ever paid for. Around midnight, Sam texted again. "You're gonna want to see this." A video. Jordan and Ethan, in a car, whispering, heated. "This is getting messy," Jordan said. "It won't," Ethan replied. "The party sealed it. Everyone saw. When things blow up, she'll look unstable. I'll be clean." Clean. I didn't realize my hand had tightened around the phone until my knuckles turned white. Sam sent another message. "He doesn't know you've moved out. Yet." And another. "He also doesn't know the feds are sniffing around DeLuca. Something's brewing." My pulse quickened, not with fear, but with a sense of inevitability. When people build empires out of lies, they always think they're the only ones who can see the cracks. But sometimes the cracks are exactly where the light gets in. Over the next week, I built my new routine. Wake up, make my own coffee, spend the morning organizing files for Jenna and Noah. Meet Sam at random locations where he slid new surveillance photos across diner tables like he was dealing playing cards. Highlight timelines, match transactions, create folders labeled things like insurance and possible witnesses. At night, I took quiet walks around the neighborhood. I watched couples sit on porches, dogs barking at squirrels, kids riding scooters along the sidewalk. Real life, simple life, and a strange thing happened. I began to feel whole, not healed, not yet, but stitched back together in small, steady ways. Ethan's silence during this time didn't frighten me. It confirmed what I suspected. He thought he still held the narrative. He thought I was hiding, breaking, crumbling the way he needed me to. He thought I'd play the part he'd assigned, the unstable wife, overwhelmed, fragile, drowning. But every day, every document, every folder on my laptop was a quiet refusal. Then something unexpected happened. 3 days after moving out, I found a manila envelope slid under my apartment door. No return address, no name. Inside, printed screenshots, emails between Ethan and Marco. Short, cold, transactional. But one line stood out. "If she asks questions, push her out. Give her a reason to leave." Clean break. My stomach dropped, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed everything. And underneath the email printouts was a single handwritten note. "You don't know me, but you need to see this." He's not done yet. No signature. But I recognized the handwriting immediately. Jordan. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. She wasn't switching sides because she felt bad. She was switching sides because the walls were closing in. And that meant one thing. Things were about to get much darker for all of them. The first real complication didn't come from Ethan. It came from the world around him, the world that had always protected him, admired him, believed him. The world he carefully curated, and it started with the phone calls. 3 days after Jordan's anonymous envelope arrived, my phone lit up with Ethan's name. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. On the fourth attempt, a voicemail popped up. I didn't want to listen. But I did. "Lauren," his voice said, soft, coaxing, sickeningly familiar. "You can't just disappear like this. People are worried. I'm worried. Call me. We need to talk. People are worried." Translation: "You left the script." He called again that evening, but the tone had sharpened. "This isn't healthy. You're scaring people. Come home. Don't make this worse." There it was, the pivot. The gaslighting dressed as concern. Make this worse, as if he hadn't detonated our life on a stage in front of 100 strangers. I saved every voicemail. Evidence. The next complication arrived in the form of my mother. She called 12 times before I finally picked up. Not because I wanted to talk, but because I knew she would show up at my job if I didn't. "Lauren," she said without hello. Ethan came by. My grip tightened on the phone. "He did what?" "He was worried," she insisted. "He said you left with no explanation. He thinks you're overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. Another word chosen carefully. Another seed. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Did he tell you what he did at the anniversary party?" A pause. A long one. "He said it was a misunderstanding. That you two had a fight. That he made a mistake." "A mistake?" My laugh came out sharp. "He humiliated me in front of 100 people. And he's cheating on me." Her inhale cracked through the speaker. "Lauren, are you sure?" "He didn't seem—" "Mom." I cut in, slower this time, colder. "He's not the man you think he is." She hesitated. I could hear her wrestling with the version of Ethan she wanted to believe, the polished provider, the respectable businessman, the son-in-law she bragged about. People don't easily let go of illusions that make their world prettier. "I just want you to be careful," she whispered. "I am," I said. For the first time, but her doubt lingered in the air long after the call ended. The next wave hit when Riley showed up at my apartment unannounced. Her eyes were puffy, guilt written all over her face. Low. "Please open the door." Against my better judgment, I let her in. She stepped inside, took one look at the stacks of documents, and covered her mouth. "Oh my God, Lo, what is all this?" "My life," I said. "The real version. The one Ethan hoped I'd never see." She walked slowly, reading labels, shell activity, fake signatures, insurance. When she turned back to me, her face had gone pale. "There's something I have to tell you," she said, "and you're going to hate me for it." My stomach tightened. "It's about Ethan," she whispered. "And Jordan." I closed my eyes. "How long have you known?" She swallowed. "Months. Adam, my boyfriend, works at Ethan's company. He saw them together once, he told me. And I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt you. I thought maybe it was just a rumor." Rumor. The word burned hotter than betrayal. "You didn't want to hurt me?" I said softly. "Or you didn't want to be the person who confirmed what you already suspected?" Her chin trembled. "Lo, please, I'm sorry. I wasn't cruel. I didn't scream." But I stepped away from her. "Riley," I said quietly, "I love you. But right now, I don't trust you. And I can't afford to trust the wrong person." Her tears fell fast. "Let me fix this." "You can't," I said. "But you can stay out of the way." She cried harder. I didn't move. I didn't comfort. Not this time. She eventually left, her sobs echoing down the hallway. Another complication, another fracture, another cost of doing what I had to do. But the worst complication, at least emotionally, came in one single text message from Ethan later that night. "If you keep acting like this, people will believe I had reasons." My breath froze, not because I believed him, but because I finally understood the depth of his plan. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't confused. He was planting narratives, painting me unstable, irrational, emotionally unwell. The wife who snapped. It was almost elegant, in a monstrous way. Jenna saw the text and said, "He's trying to trigger you into responding. Don't." "I'm not responding," I said. Not to him, but in my chest, something violent stirred an urge to drive to his office, throw the files in his face, scream until the walls cracked. Instead, I took a slow breath, counted to 10, opened a blank page in the binder Noah had helped me create, titled it Psychological Manipulation. I wrote down every message, every call, every word designed to provoke me. If he wanted a performance, I'd give him one, just not the one he expected. But the final complication of the week arrived in the most unexpected way. An email from a blocked address, no subject line, just one sentence. "If you want proof he planned all of this, meet me alone." Attached was an address, Warehouse District, near the waterfront, midnight. And I knew instantly who it was from, Jordan. But was it a cry for help? A confession? Or a trap? I stared at the screen for a full minute, pulse steady but heavy. This was the tipping point, the line between information and danger. And I understood something with bone-deep clarity. The story was no longer about heartbreak or betrayal. It was becoming a war of shadows. I stared at Jordan's email long after the screen dimmed. The warehouse address, the time, the instruction to come alone. Everything about it screamed danger. Everything about it also screamed truth. People like Jordan don't confess out of guilt. They confess when the ground under their feet starts breaking apart. Still, the timing was too perfect, too sharp. Jenna's voice echoed in my mind. "Never go into a situation he can flip on you." But something else echoed louder. "He's not done yet." I forwarded the email to Jenna, Noah, and Sam with one line: "I'm not going alone." Within minutes, my phone buzzed. First Jenna, "Do not go there." Then Noah, "Forward me the IP source. I'll trace it." I watched of the Millery 2R. Then Sam, "Already on my way. Don't open the door for anybody but me." The burst of messages should have scared me, but instead, they focused me, steadied me. For the first time in my marriage, I wasn't isolated. I wasn't alone in the dark, guessing at shadows. I had eyes. I had strategy. I had a team. But I also had a complication I hadn't seen coming. Ethan escalated. At 8:17 p.m., as I was reviewing the warehouse address with Sam at my apartment, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Your wife is losing it. Thought you should know." A screenshot followed. A cropped image of me, taken from the viral anniversary video, eyes wide, smile frozen, the moment just before the mic drop. But someone had edited the caption, "Unhinged wife melts down in public." Someone was trying to push a narrative, and someone was sending that narrative straight to Ethan. Sam leaned over my shoulder. "He's building his case, trying to frame you as unstable." My breath chilled. "But why send it to me? He wants me to panic?" "No," Sam said. "He wants you to react." I didn't react. I saved it to the psychological manipulation folder. At 9:03 p.m., Jenna arrived, pacing like she was mentally tearing apart an entire legal system. "This is coordinated," she said. "He's planting seeds everywhere, your mother, your friends, the internet, and now you. He wants a trail that shows erratic behavior. He's preparing for a very specific kind of legal defense." "What kind?" I asked. She met my eyes. "One where he claims you forged the documents, not him." My heart slammed against my ribs. "But I didn't. He knows that. But the strategy won't be about truth," Jenna said. "It'll be about perception. Perception. The thing Ethan mastered better than anyone." Before we could dig further, Noah called. His voice was unusually tense. "I traced the email source." "And?" I asked. "It came from somewhere in DeLuca's network. But the device is odd." "Odd how?" "It's registered under a shell company Ethan created last year." The room went silent. "So the email might not be from Jordan at all?" I whispered. "It could be," Noah said. "But it could also be Ethan, or DeLuca, or someone setting you up." I clenched the edge of the table. "Jordan wouldn't set a trap for me. She's scared." "Scared people make dangerous choices," Jenna said, "especially when cornered." The three of them stared at me, waiting for my decision. Finally, I said, "I'm not meeting her alone. But I'm going. At 11:27 p.m., we parked 2 blocks from the warehouse district. Fog crawled over the ground like it had a mind of its own. The air smelled like rust and salt water. The streetlights flickered, leaving long shadows stretching across cracked pavement. It was the kind of place where bad deals happened quietly and bodies disappeared loudly. Sam loaded his camera equipment. Jenna double-checked the restraining order paperwork she wanted ready, just in case. Noah pulled out his laptop like he could hack his way out of danger if needed. "You stay in the car," Jenna ordered. "Sam goes in first. If it's a trap, we walk away." I nodded. But my gaze stayed fixed on the warehouse, its metal siding rusted, its windows shattered, its silence unnerving. At 11:59, a single figure appeared in the doorway. Thin, female, tense. "Jordan," she kept glancing over her shoulder like someone might drag her back into the dark. Sam whispered, "That's her. Looks alone." Jenna's hand hovered over her phone. "Noah, keep your eyes open. Lauren, stay put." Sam moved fast, his camera tucked under his jacket. He approached slowly, speaking to Jordan with low, steady words I couldn't hear. Then Jordan pointed inside the warehouse. Sam stiffened. Jenna cursed under her breath. "Damn it." "What?" I asked. "She's not asking him to follow. She's warning him." Sam stepped back quickly, motioning frantically toward our car. Then something rattled from inside the warehouse. Metal scraping metal, heavy footsteps. My heartbeat slammed into my throat. 2 men emerged behind Jordan, one tall, one stocky. Dark jackets, gloved hands. DeLuca's men, not Ethan's. Jordan took one look at them and bolted toward Sam. "Go!" Sam shouted. "Drive!" Jenna floored the gas before I even processed the movement. Tires screeched. Noah swore. Sam grabbed Jordan and sprinted toward us as the men lunged. The car door flew open. Jordan dove inside, Sam jumped in after her, and Jenna hit the accelerator again, just as one of the men reached for the handle. For 3 blocks, headlights chased us. For 3 blocks, my lungs forgot how to work. For 3 blocks, Jordan sobbed uncontrollably in the seat beside me. But then the headlights turned away, disappearing into an alley. Silence fell over the car. Jordan wiped her face with shaking hands. "It wasn't supposed to be like that," she whispered. I needed someone to hear me." "Why?" I asked. She looked at me with eyes so hollow it chilled me. "Because Ethan and Marco are planning to let everything fall on you," she said. "And when they do, I won't survive it either." My breath trembled. "What do you mean?" Jordan swallowed hard. "There's something worse you haven't found yet." Her hands tightened around her purse. "Something he signed in your name." "What is it?" I whispered. Jordan looked at me with absolute terror. "A life insurance policy, Lauren." Cold washed through my bloodstream. "And the payout," she choked out, "is $8 million. He put you down as the one who dies." The night everything finally snapped into place didn't look dramatic at first glance. It was foggy, cold, quiet, the kind of quiet that tricks you into thinking nothing bad could possibly happen. But underneath that stillness was a pulse, a tension, a sense that something enormous, unavoidable, and irreversible was about to break open. Melissa King from the FBI called me that afternoon. Her voice was calm in that unnerving federal agent way, measured, clinical, detached. "Lauren," she said, "we need you tonight." My fingers tightened around the phone. "What do you mean?" "We have an active operation targeting Ethan Cole, Marco DeLuca, and their shell network. We need corroborating presence from the victim to secure context for the warrant. You won't be in the building. You will not be in danger. But you need to be there to confirm real-time identification." Victim. The word hit harder than I expected. "Why tonight?" I asked. "Because DeLuca is moving assets, and your husband is meeting him." My pulse thundered in my ears. She continued, "Cole believes he's untouchable. That works in our favor. He won't hide. Not tonight." I swallowed. "What do you need me to do?" "Sit in a car, watch, and when it's time, tell us if the man being arrested is your husband." A strange laugh escaped me short. Brittle. "I think I can manage that." Melissa didn't laugh. "This won't be easy, but it will be final." Final. A word like a closing door. By 10:14 p.m., I was inside an unmarked SUV with tinted windows, parked half a block away from an abandoned warehouse near the waterfront. Melissa sat beside me, radio in hand, her face lit by the glow of monitors mounted on the dashboard. Fog rolled across the pavement, creeping like low smoke. The air smelled like rust, salt, and something faintly chemical. Farther away, waves slapped against the pilings with dull, rhythmic thuds. Every sound echoed. Sam, Jenna, and Noah were in separate locations, watching, listening, feeding information to Melissa's team. But it was me who sat in the front row seat of my husband's downfall. "Are you cold?" Melissa asked, without looking away from the screens. "A little," I said. But it wasn't the weather. It was everything. The months of unraveling. The layers of deception peeled back one by one. The fear that had sharpened into clarity. And now, the moment the world would finally see Ethan the way I'd learned to see him. Not as a husband, not as a businessman, but as a criminal. I looked out the window at the warehouse, its corrugated metal sides streaked with rust, its windows broken, its doorway a black mouth swallowing the fog. "What exactly is happening in there?" I asked. Melissa's eyes flicked toward me, then back to the monitors. "They think they're finalizing a transfer. Money, property, probably documents tying you to the insurance policy as their fallback. They don't know we've been building a case for months." My throat tightened. "If he suspected anything, he doesn't," she said. "Men like Ethan don't see women like you as a threat. That's been your biggest advantage." I let out a shaky breath. "He always underestimated me." Melissa nodded once, then let him do it one last time. At 10:39 p.m., headlights appeared at the far end of the street. A black SUV rolled to a slow stop beside the warehouse loading dock. A moment later, another dark car approached from the opposite direction. "Target's arriving," one of the agents said through Melissa's earpiece. Melissa tapped her radio. "All units, eyes up." On the monitor, grainy black and white footage showed silhouettes stepping out of the vehicles. The tall one, broad shoulders, heavy coat, that was Marco. The one with the familiar posture, the confident stride, the slight forward lean. Ethan. My stomach twisted. My lungs seized. Even from the surveillance camera's angle, I recognized the way he walked, the way he adjusted his sleeve, the way he scanned the surroundings like the world belonged to him. Melissa glanced at me. "Is that him?" I nodded. "Yes, that's Ethan." Something tightened in her jaw. "Good. That's all we need from you for identification." But the night wasn't done with me yet. The camera zoomed slightly as all three figures entered the warehouse. Inside, faint lights flickered battery lamps. Maybe. Metallic echoes drifted out through the broken windows. Muffled voices. A door slamming. The muted scrape of something heavy being dragged across concrete. Melissa clicked her radio. "Teams Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, stand by. Do not move until the signal." A voice crackled back. "Copy!" The SUV felt too small, too dark, too tense. I pressed my fingers against my knees, grounding myself as Melissa switched between camera feeds. "1 minute," she murmured. "Just 1 more minute. And they'll give us what we need." I stared at the warehouse, harder than I'd ever stared at anything in my life. This was the man I'd once loved, the man I married, the man who had whispered promises against my skin, planned futures with me, kissed me goodnight. The same man who forged my signature, framed me, humiliated me, and ensured my death for $8 million. I wasn't watching my husband tonight. I was watching the villain of my story finally walk into the spotlight. 10:47 p.m. A sudden shift flickered on screen. Inside the warehouse, one of the men pulled out a thick envelope, stacks of documents. Ethan took it, flipped through it, held one page up toward the dim light. Melissa leaned closer. "That might be it. That could be the fraudulent policy." "Can you zoom?" I whispered. "We already are." Another agent's voice came through the radio. "Signal ready." The tension in the SUV constricted the air. Melissa raised the radio to her lips. "On my mark." I inhaled. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Her finger hovered over the transmit button. Execute. The radio exploded with noise. "FBI. FBI. Hands where we can see them." The warehouse lit up with sudden white beams from tactical flashlights. The cameras shook as agents stormed in shadows, moving fast. Boots slamming concrete, shouts ricocheting off the metal walls. On the monitor, Ethan spun around, eyes wide, just as 2 agents rushed him. His arms shot up. Marco tried to run. 3 agents tackled him. The envelope flew from someone's hand, papers scattering like broken feathers. A flood of adrenaline surged through me so sharply it made my vision swim. "He's resisting," someone yelled. "No, get down, face on the ground." Tango 2 subdued. Tango 1 in custody. It was chaos and clarity all at once. Melissa grabbed the door handle. "Stay here," but my hand shot out. "Wait." She paused. "Lauren, I need to see him." "You don't," she said, firm. "Trust me." "I have to," I whispered. "I need him to know I'm not afraid anymore." Melissa studied me for 2 long seconds. Then she nodded. "Don't get out of the car." She opened the door, stepped out, and circled around to my side, opening the back door. Cold night air hit me like a slap. "From the vehicle only," she said. I stepped out just enough to see the warehouse clearly. Red and blue lights strobed against the fog, painting everything in violent color. Agents swarmed like shadows, and in the middle of it, handcuffed, breath visible in short bursts, eyes wild, was Ethan. He looked smaller than I remembered, weaker, hollow, lost. An agent shoved him against a patrol vehicle to search him. His face turned in my direction. Our eyes met. He froze. Shock, recognition, and something like betrayal, like I had wronged him. His lips parted. "Lauren? What did you—" His voice cracked, but I didn't move. Melissa stood beside me, arms crossed, her presence like a shield. Ethan lunged forward a half step, only for the agent to pull him back. "You did this?" he yelled. "You! Are you insane, Lauren?" The wind carried his voice toward me like a jagged blade, but I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just watched. For him, watching me stand there must have been the final twist of the knife. He shook his head violently. Tell them you signed those documents." One of the agents stepped forward. "We've seen the signatures." "That's exactly the problem." Ethan's face drained of color. "Lauren," he gasped again. "Please." But I looked at Melissa instead. "I'm done being quiet," I said softly. Melissa nodded. "Then let's finish this." And the door closed behind her. The moment the doors of the SUV closed again, sealing me inside with the muffled chaos outside, something inside me twisted open. A space I didn't even know existed. A space between fear and fury, between heartbreak and clarity. I sat back, hands on my knees, watching the warehouse become a crime scene, agents moving like black silhouettes through fog sliced by red-blue light. The world outside flickered, as if reality itself couldn't decide which version of Ethan it wanted to show. The polished husband I once loved, or the criminal now pinned against a federal vehicle. But then the car door opened again. "Lauren," Melissa said quietly, "you need to come with me for formal identification." I nodded, swallowing hard. My mouth tasted like metal. She guided me around the SUV, one hand lightly on my shoulder, not comforting, not controlling, just steadying. The cold night slapped my skin, and the air smelled sharper now, like adrenaline and exhaust. Ahead, agents were moving Ethan toward a secondary vehicle for transport. Marco had already been taken away in another unmarked van, still cursing, still insisting it was all a misunderstanding, still pretending the world owed him protection. Jordan sat in the back of another SUV nearby, wrapped in a blanket, shivering not from cold but from the aftershock of betrayal. She looked at me as I passed, guilt and fear warring in her eyes, but I didn't break focus. Not yet. Melissa stopped us a safe distance away, far enough that Ethan couldn't touch me, close enough that he could see my face clearly. "This is standard procedure," she said. "Say it when you're ready." I inhaled. Ethan was hunched slightly after the rough takedown, but when he saw me standing there, he straightened as much as the cuffs allowed. He looked furious, terrified, lost. His eyes darted around as if calculating escape routes, searching for some angle, some psychological foothold. "Lauren!" he shouted. "You don't know what you're doing." I didn't move. "You're making a mistake," he added, voice cracking. "You think the FBI cares about you? They're using you. They're twisting everything." Melissa stepped just into his line of sight. "Mr. Cole, you need to remain quiet." He laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. "Quiet? You want me quiet when my wife is being manipulated?" "She's not your wife," I said. The words left my mouth calm, soft, icy. Ethan flinched like they'd been slapped across his face. "Don't talk like that," he hissed. "Don't do this here." "Why not?" I asked. "You did." He swallowed, chest heaving. "That was different." "How?" I asked coldly. "Because you had an audience? Because you needed witnesses?" His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He wasn't used to being questioned without the option to rewrite the narrative. Melissa nodded at me gently. "Go ahead." I looked at the agent standing behind Ethan. Yes, I said. That is my husband, Ethan Cole. The agent clicked something on his tablet. Confirmed. And just like that, officially, legally, undeniably, the man in handcuffs wasn't my partner. He was a perpetrator, but he didn't accept it, not even close. He lunged forward again, the agent holding him back firmly. Lauren, tell them, everything was for us. For us? My voice was quiet. The warehouse seemed to hold its breath. You ensured my death. His expression flickered just for a second. Then he recovered. That wasn't me, he snapped. Marco did that. I didn't handle those papers, but the panic in his voice betrayed him. He wasn't convincing anyone, not even himself. And the forged signatures? I asked. The offshore accounts? The hotel visits with Jordan every Tuesday and Thursday? The meetings at the docks? The shell companies? The property scams? Each question struck like a hammer. His eyes darted wildly, searching for cracks in reality, for any version of the story where he wasn't the villain. You don't understand, he said. You never understood business. You never understood what it takes to survive out here. A cold laugh escaped me. Business? That's what you call this? Fraud? Money laundering? Identity theft? Planning to let me take the fall so you could walk away clean? He shook his head violently. You're wrong. You're so wrong. You're letting them twist. I'm letting you speak for yourself, I said. And you're doing exactly what you always do. Blame everyone but you. His face hardened. I gave you everything. You took everything, I said. And you expected me to thank you for the privilege. He let out a harsh breath. Fine. You want honesty? You were holding me back. The words hit me hard, but not like before. Not like pain. More like confirmation. Solid. Heavy. Final. Really? I said softly. Is that why you tried to frame me for financial crimes? Is that why you set up an $8 million insurance policy with my forged signature? His eyes flickered wildly. He wasn't prepared for this kind of confrontation. Not here. Not now. Not where the truth had nowhere to hide. That wasn't supposed to involve you, he snapped. But it did, I said. Because you made it involve me. Melissa raised her hand slightly, a signal to the transport agents. Time to move him. No, Ethan yelled. I'm not done. She needs to listen. But the agents grabbed his arms. He fought. Hard. Lauren, he screamed as they pulled him back. This isn't over. You think you know everything, but you don't. You don't know what Marco was planning. You don't know what they want from me. You don't. We do, Melissa said flatly. And that's why you're going to federal custody, he thrashed, desperation clawing through his voice. Lauren, say something to them. I stepped closer, just enough that he could see me clearly through the flashing lights, the fog, and his own unraveling. Then, with a voice steady as steel, I said, I don't owe you my silence anymore. His entire body seemed to deflate. The fight left him. The facade cracked. The truth landed. He stared at me, eyes wide, breathing ragged, expression caught between disbelief and dread. You did this, he whispered hoarsely. You destroyed us. No, I said. You destroyed us the moment you decided my life was disposable. The words stopped him cold. No amount of charm or manipulation or calculated narrative could save him now. The agents finished securing him, guiding him toward the federal vehicle. He didn't fight this time. He didn't speak. He didn't look back. The door closed with a heavy metallic thud, and just like that, the man who once controlled every part of my world was gone, taken by the system he thought he could outsmart. But the night wasn't done with me, not even close. Melissa approached, her expression softer now. You okay? I let out a shaky breath. I don't know. That's normal, she said. Justice isn't healing, but it's a start. Her radio crackled. Another agent approached with files. Someone called her name. The operation wasn't over. They still had evidence to catalog, property to seize, statements to prepare. But for a split second, the warehouse district felt quiet again. Not dead, not dangerous, just empty. The right kind of empty. Jordan was still in the vehicle behind us, her face ghost pale. The moment she saw me walking past, she scrambled out of the SUV, blanket falling off her shoulders. Lauren, she choked out. I didn't know it would go this far. I swear, I didn't know. I held up a hand. Not tonight. But I need you to know. Not tonight, Jordan. Her face twisted with something between guilt and relief. She nodded slowly, backing away, letting the agents usher her back inside the vehicle. Melissa guided me toward the SUV. You need to sit, she said gently. I opened the door, slid inside, and exhaled a breath I felt like I'd been holding for years. Through the window, the flashing lights softened into a blur. Agents moved like shadows. The wind howled, the fog thickened, and Ethan's transport van rolled away toward his future, Toward consequences he could no longer silence or spin. I watched until the taillights disappeared into the darkness. Then I whispered, barely audible, "You don't get to write my story anymore." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. The chaos slowly thinned, like a storm unraveling thread by thread. Agents moved with practiced precision, marking evidence, photographing tire tracks, tagging documents retrieved from inside the warehouse. The fog seemed to swell around them, swallowing shouts and radio static into a dull hum. Someone taped off the perimeter. Someone else wheeled out a portable floodlight that threw long, dramatic shadows across the cracked pavement. I sat in the passenger seat of the SUV, watching everything from behind the glass. My breath still came unevenly, but the trembling had stopped. Instead, a strange warmth flickered in my chest, small, tender, unfamiliar. Not joy, not relief, something quieter, deeper, something like reclaiming oxygen after years of stale air. Then Melissa opened the driver's door. "We need you inside the building," she said. My stomach tightened. "Inside?" She nodded. "There's something you need to see. And legally. Something only you can confirm." Ice crept down my back. "What is it?" "There's property. Documents. And indications that your identity was used in more ways than we previously believed." I knew what she meant before she finished the sentence. The insurance. The forged signatures. The life they built around me. Not with me. "Can Sam come?" I asked quietly. "He's already inside," she said. That helped. A little. I stepped out onto the pavement, my boots crunching against gravel. The night air hit me again, colder, sharper, this time tinged with something earthy, like mold, like decay. The warehouse loomed ahead, lit from the inside by harsh white beams. Its walls were streaked with rust, its roof sagging in places. A place built to rot, perfect in its own way, for the truth that had been hiding here. As Melissa led me forward, I caught a glimpse of Noah speaking with two financial crimes agents, pointing at a tablet, gesturing emphatically. Jenna stood farther away, arms crossed, listening to an evidence tech who spoke too quickly, her face a mixture of rage and vindication. Sam was near the loading bay doors, camera in hand, talking to a uniformed officer. He caught my eye and nodded once a silent "you're okay" before turning back to his work. Inside, the warehouse smelled like dust, gasoline, and old dampness. The floor was uneven. Metal shelves stood crooked. Papers littered the ground like fallen leaves. The echo of distant voices bounced around the cavernous space. "Watch your step," Melissa said. "I am," I murmured. But my eyes weren't on the floor. They were on the table in the center. A metal workbench, 2 chairs, a stack of documents, a duffel bag half-zipped, a burner phone, a black notebook, and one thing that sent a chill straight into my bones, a medical folder with my name on it. My breath caught. "What is that?" "We were hoping you could tell us," Melissa said softly. My hands shook as I reached for the folder. It was cold, heavier than it should have been. Inside were printed forms, insurance assessments, medical history questionnaires, a physical exam I had never taken. And at the top of every page, in clipped block letters, "Pierce, Lauren Primary Insured." I flipped to the last page. My signature stared back at me, perfectly forged. My throat tightened painfully. "He used my maiden name, probably to avoid suspicion," Melissa said. "Legally, it suggested you independently sought coverage." Independently. Coverage. $8 million. I swallowed. "He expected this to work. He expected you not to fight," she corrected. My vision blurred for a moment, this mix of rage, grief, and vindication so powerful I felt dizzy. I steadied myself on the table. "Did he ever see you as a person?" I whispered, not meaning to say it out loud. Melissa answered with silence, the kind of silence that tells the truth. "There was more." Sam approached with a grim expression. "Lauren, you need to see this." He handed me the black notebook. I opened it slowly. Inside were lists, dates, numbers, calculations, and at the top of a page, LP exit strategy. My initials, exit strategy. My heartbeat thudded painfully in my ears. Under it, bullet points. Insurance payout initiated immediately. Public narrative, unstable, erratic behavior. Legal fallback, forged documents attributed to LPR. Assets transferred to ML Holdings DeLuca Pros. Clean slate after she's out. I reread the last line. After she's out. The room swayed for a second. I forced my feet to stay planted. "He planned everything," I whispered. Sam cursed under his breath. Melissa's jaw tightened. Jenna approached from behind me, her voice low and trembling with controlled fury. "This is premeditation. This is beyond fraud. This is attempted life eradication." Her words sliced through me. Sharp. True. I closed the notebook, gripping it so tightly my knuckles ached. Before I could speak, A sudden shout echoed from near the entrance. "Agent King! You need to see this." Melissa strode forward. I followed, notebook in hand. Near the loading bay doors, 2 agents had opened the duffel bag. Inside were stacks of documents, envelopes stuffed with cash, and my heart dropped a burner phone still buzzing with incoming notifications. One agent held up a small object in a gloved hand. A key fob. Recognition hit me like a punch. "My car," I whispered. "That's my car's spare key." Melissa turned sharply. "Your car? The one he reported as his asset during the last financial disclosure?" "Yes," I said. "He kept the spare. I thought it was just convenience." One of the agents exchanged a look with Melissa. "Ma'am, this suggests he was tracking your movements." I blinked. "Tracking me?" "We found a GPS unit with the same device ID," he continued. "It was active as of this evening." My stomach churned. Everything inside me felt wrong. "Violated," Jenna muttered. "The image is clearer every minute." The warehouse suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. Every shadow felt like another truth waiting to ambush me. "Is there more?" I whispered. "Unfortunately," Melissa said. "Yes." She led me toward a workbench near the back wall. On it lay a laptop, cracked at the corner. An agent was restoring the active screen. "Recovered files," he said. "Last modified timestamps. This afternoon." A folder blinked open. LC. Contingency. LC. Lauren Cole. I stiffened. Inside were subfolders. Statements. Draft. Breakdown. Notes. Public. Appearance. Timing. Live stream. Clips. Rehearsal. Audio lead. I froze. "Live stream? Rehearsal?" Melissa nodded solemnly. "He practiced his anniversary speech." My heart went silent. "He rehearsed humiliating me?" I whispered. Jenna put a hand on my back. "It was never spontaneous. It was strategic," Sam whispered. "He wanted everyone in that room to witness your instability." I stared at the screen. The room blurred again. I couldn't breathe for a moment. Then the agent clicked, "Audio 1, MP3. Ethan's voice filled the warehouse. Cold, even, rehearsed. "I wish I'd never married you." Each syllable sounded mechanical. Practiced. Repeated. Then a second take. More emphasis on never. More woundedness in married. More disgust on you. My knees nearly buckled. "This is," I whispered. "Calculated." Melissa turned off the audio. The silence afterward felt suffocating. "Lauren," she said carefully, "this is sufficient evidence for multiple felony charges: fraud, coercion, identity manipulation, premeditated psychological entrapment, and attempted harm. You helped build this case. You should see the final step." I nodded slowly. "What step?" "Facing him," she said. "On record." Ice shot through my spine. "You mean confront him at the holding site?" "No," she said. "A formal statement room, with windows, with officers present, with complete safety. But yes, face to face." My throat tightened. "Why? Haven't we done enough?" "Because his lawyers will argue psychological instability," she said. "They'll claim you're fragile, reactionary, unreliable. The strongest thing you can do is look him in the eye and speak the truth calmly, calmly. The way he tried to weaponize against me, calmly. The thing he never expected me to have." Sam touched my shoulder. "You don't have to do it tonight." But something inside me, something fierce, something ancient rose. "No," I said. "Tonight is exactly right. By 2-3 a.m. I was in a federal interrogation facility 2 miles from the warehouse. The room they placed me in was clean, bright, barren gray walls, metal table, fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. A one-way mirror stretched across one wall. I could see my reflection, pale skin, tired eyes, hair slightly tangled from the cold night air. But I also saw something new. Strength. Not loud strength, not dramatic, not vengeful. Quiet strength, sharp strength. The kind forged in betrayal and refined in truth. The door opened. 2 agents escorted Ethan inside. His hands were still cuffed. His face was pale now, stripped of confidence, stripped of charm, stripped of every narrative he once controlled. When he saw me sitting there, he froze. "Lauren," he breathed. One agent sat him down. Another stood behind him. Melissa entered last, closing the door. "You may speak," she said. "This conversation is recorded." Ethan's eyes locked onto mine. Wild, desperate, searching for the old version of me he could manipulate. "Why?" he whispered. "Why would you do this?" I didn't blink. "Because you did." He swallowed hard, throat bobbing. "I had no choice. You had every choice." "You don't understand," he rasped. "I was protecting us." I let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "You forged my name. You insured my life, You tried to erase me. He leaned forward, cuffs clinking. I love you. The lie landed like a broken feather. Slowly, deliberately, I stood. He flinched. I walked to the edge of the table, leaned down slightly, and spoke in a voice that felt like steel wrapped in velvet. You don't get to say my name anymore. He inhaled sharply, as if the words themselves were a blow. Then he broke, not dramatically, not loudly, but with a small, defeated exhale, like something inside him finally realized the game was over. What happens now? He whispered. I stepped back, straightened my shoulders, and said the truest words I'd ever spoken. Now, you face the world you built. Melissa tapped the table. Interview concludes 2:19 a.m. She opened the door. Light spilled in. Ethan looked back at me one last time, eyes empty, hollow, trapped, and I walked out without another word. The morning after the confrontation, I woke in the guest cot of the federal facility stiff, dehydrated, and more exhausted than I'd ever felt, but strangely grounded, like my bones had finally settled in the right place. Melissa entered the small room just as I was tying my hair back. We need you in the conference suite, she said. The prosecutors want to walk you through everything we seized. Everything. The word sent a tremor through me. Because last night had been a storm. This morning was the excavation after the storm. A slow, methodical unearthing of every lie, every forged paper, every digital footprint Ethan and DeLuca had buried to frame me. I followed Melissa down a hallway into a glass room buzzing with activity. Screens lined the walls, each displaying evidence boards, timelines, accounts, email chains. It felt like stepping into the inside of someone's brain, a brain dedicated entirely to destroying Ethan Cole. Dana Whitaker, the former federal prosecutor Jenna had brought onto the team, was already there. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. The kind of woman who could unhinge a criminal enterprise with a well-timed question. She gestured for me to sit. Lauren. We walked until midnight, pulling their financial roots apart, she said. The picture is even worse than what we believed. I inhaled slowly. Show me. She nodded at Noah, who looked like he'd aged a year overnight as he tapped a key. One monitor lit up with a flowchart. At the top, ML Holdings. A spiderweb dropped down from it. Bridgeview West Investments, Portline Commercial, Sunridge Property Group, LC Real Estate Trust, Norton Bay Financial, and a half-dozen offshore LLCs I couldn't even pronounce. Dana pointed to a square in the middle. This is you. I froze. Pierce Development Fund Managing Partner. Lauren Pierce. I've never heard of that, I whispered. We know, Dana said. It's an identity construct, a legal persona they built around you to facilitate transfers. The edges of my vision tingled. So I'm a fictional business owner? On paper? Yes, Noah said. In at least 12 states and 3 countries. He zoomed in on a set of documents. They forged your signature on every incorporation form, every loan application, every asset transfer. Your SSN was used to secure multiple lines of credit, and the original source for all of it was your joint taxes from the first 2 years of marriage. The room tilted. My tax returns? Noah nodded. He used the initial filings to verify your identity to banks. Once that pipeline was open, it was almost impossible to trace without forensic review. Melissa folded her arms. This is why he needed you to look unstable. If anything exploded later, you'd appear to be the mastermind, and he'd appear to be the unsuspecting spouse who tried to help. I felt heat rise in the back of my throat, not tears. Rage. A deep, ancient, feminine rage. What about the insurance? I asked. Is there more? Dana's jaw tightened. A lot more. She clicked to another folder. A scanned document appeared. Sun Life Premier Policy Coverage Amount. $8 million. Primary insured. Lauren Pierce. Beneficiary. Ethan Cole. I had to grip the armrest. That's the one Jordan told me about. Dana nodded. There were 2 more. My blood went cold. I'm sorry, she said, her voice softening. This was not a one-time idea. It was a pattern, a contingency plan. A contingency plan to remove me, erase me, profit from me. Melissa stepped closer, her tone clinical now. It aligns with the notebook entries. This wasn't merely fraud. This was asset-oriented harm, I whispered. He was willing to destroy my life in every sense, financially, legally, and physically. No one contradicted me. Dana cleared her throat. And there's something else. Maybe the most important part. She opened another evidence file, labeled simply, JBE Files. I frowned. JB, Jordan Blake Enterprises, Jenna said from the doorway. I hadn't noticed she'd walked in. Her private drive, Melissa added. She turned everything over last night. Shock rippled through me. Everything? Yes, Dana said. Emails, audio recordings, transaction memos, calendars, even video files. Why? I asked numbly. Jenna answered, because she realized DeLuca would tie up loose ends. And you weren't a loose end, she was. Dana tapped the screen again. A folder expanded. Asher? Jordan. Calls. DeLuca? Meetings. Fake appraisals. Payout distribution. Manipulation strategy. LC liability plan. Anniversary rehearsal. My heart stalled on that last line. Rehearsal? I whispered. Dana clicked it. The screen filled with phone video footage. Ethan stood in his office, practicing, adjusting his collar, speaking into a mirror. I wish I'd never married you. He paused, tilted his head. More pity, he muttered to himself. Make myself look hurt. Then he tried again. Lauren, I wish I'd never married you. I felt something crack inside me, not heartbreak, not horror, something cleaner, sharper, clarity. Jenna leaned in. This recording alone demolishes his entire claim of emotional spontaneity, Dana added. And the timing logs show he recorded these clips in the weeks leading up to your anniversary. He designed that moment. My pulse hammered in my ears. He designed the whole night. I said softly. Melissa shook her head. Not the ending. You did that. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Is there enough? I asked. To convict all of them? Dana didn't hesitate. Lauren, we don't just have enough. We have more than I've ever seen in a single case. This is airtight. Noah added. Ethan's entire empire is collapsing. DeLuca's network is unraveling. Jordan's cooperation seals the timeline. And you, I looked up. You're the keystone witness, he finished. Without you, this case doesn't exist. With you, it can't fail. I closed my eyes briefly, not in fear, but in acceptance. For years, I thought Ethan was the one shaping our life. But the truth was finally here, and it was mine. By the time we regrouped in the conference room, the table was covered with evidence papers spread like fallen leaves, USB drives scattered like loose bullets, financial diagrams layered over each other like a map of someone's moral decay. Ethan's moral decay. Dana pressed her fingertips into the table, leaning in. There's one more thing you need to hear. The tone in her voice made my skin tighten. I braced myself. She nodded at Melissa, who opened a file folder and slid a small black device toward me. A recorder. I want to warn you, Melissa said. This isn't easy to hear, but it is important. I swallowed. Play it. A soft click. A moment of static. Then Ethan's voice filled the room. Smooth, confident. The same tone he used to charm donors, investors, me. He laughed a sound that made every hair on my arm rise. Once Lauren goes down for this, we're free. Clean. No loose ends. My heart slammed once. Hard. Another voice, Jordan's, responded, nervous and shaky. Are you sure? This feels big, Ethan. Bigger than anything we've done. It's fine, Ethan said, annoyed. She won't fight back. She never has. She signs what I tell her to sign. She believes what I tell her to believe. By the time she realizes what's happening, it'll already be too late. Dana paused the recording. I stared at the device like it was radioactive. That, she said, is the checkmate. The final proof. Not a misunderstanding. Not a marriage crisis. Not even a partner gone morally astray. But intent. Malice. Strategy. He wasn't just willing to sacrifice me. He had planned the moment, rehearsed it, delivered it, and bragged about it. No one in the room spoke for several seconds. Even Noah, who lived in the world of financial crime, looked shaken. That's admissible? I finally asked. Dana nodded. Very. And Jordan turned that over voluntarily? She did, Melissa said, after realizing Marco had already begun erasing her from his comm logs. She knew she was next. I sat back, letting the truth settle into my bones. For months, maybe years, Ethan had been molding my life around a downfall he scripted. And still, despite all his planning, he never accounted for one thing. Me, waking up. Jenna rested a hand on my shoulder. Do you understand what this means? I nodded slowly. It means he can't twist the story anymore. It means, Dana corrected softly, he never gets to control another woman's life again. The room shifted, then agents leaning in, papers rustling, the subtle hum of government-grade printers cycling in the background. The energy wasn't chaotic. It was purposeful, focused, as if a massive machine had begun turning, powered partly by evidence and partly by something far more personal, justice. Melissa gathered a fresh stack of documents. We're preparing the indictment package now. Your testimony will be the spine of the case. Testimony. Courtrooms. Faces staring. Recounting everything Ethan tried to bury. The idea should have terrified me, but it didn't. Not anymore. Instead, I felt something steadier. A pulse of resolve. A quiet fury sharpened into purpose. What happens next? I asked. Next, Dana said. The U.S. Attorney's office reviews everything. They'll finalize charges against Ethan and DeLuca. With the amount of evidence and the severity of the crimes, this will move quickly. And Jordan? I asked. She's negotiating a cooperation agreement, Melissa said. Most likely reduce charges in exchange for full testimony. I nodded, absorbing it. I want her testimony on record. All of it. You'll get it, Dana assured. Noah stepped forward with his tablet. There's something else you should see. Another flowchart appeared, this one smaller, more personal. In the last 3 years, he said, Ethan transferred over $900,000 into shell accounts under your name. If he'd succeeded in blaming you, you would have been financially destroyed, owed taxes, penalties, potentially criminal restitution. My jaw clenched. So I wasn't just the fall guy. I was the insurance policy. Exactly, Noah said. I rubbed my thumb along the edge of the table. The truth was grotesque but clarifying. Ethan wasn't a man who lost his way. He was a man building an escape route, and I was the pavement. Dana flipped to one last file. Now, about your narrative. My narrative? I echoed. Yes, she said firmly. Because this won't just be a criminal trial. It will be public. Media, social networks. You saw how the anniversary video went viral. My stomach dipped. People will talk. People already are talking, Jenna said. Your silence so far has been your strength, but soon, you'll need to control your own story. Control. A word Ethan stole from me. A word I was reclaiming. Dana continued. The evidence will speak in court. But outside of it, you get to define who you are now, not the version Ethan invented. And who is that? I asked, almost to myself. Melissa answered gently. Someone who survived. Someone who fought back. Someone who didn't stay quiet. I exhaled slowly. In the reflection of the glass conference wall, I caught sight of myself. Not the woman in the champagne dress at Marigold Estate. Not the wife Ethan rehearsed humiliation for. Not the ghost wandering a silent kitchen after midnight. But a woman holding a stack of evidence heavy enough to bury an empire. A woman who had become the consequence. Dana closed the final folder. We'll schedule your deposition for next week. After that, trial prep begins. I nodded. Before leaving the room, I reached into my bag and pulled out the white ceramic coffee mug, the same style Ethan once used to bring me breakfast. I set it on the table. Empty, clean, mine. A symbol of what I carried into the war room. A symbol of what I would carry out. 6 months after Ethan's arrest, the world felt different. Not louder, not brighter, but clearer. As if someone had finally wiped fog off a window I'd been pressing my face against for years. I moved to Portland in early spring, arriving on a gray morning when the river was wrapped in mist and the streets smelled faintly of rain and pine. My new apartment wasn't big, 1 bedroom, narrow balcony, hardwood floors that creaked in a friendly way, but it felt like mine in a way nothing had for a long time. I remember setting my single suitcase down in the living room and just standing there, breathing in the quiet. No marble counters, no designer candles, no carefully curated furnishings to impress business partners. Just space. A space untouched by Ethan. A space without ghosts. That first morning, I walked to the corner cafe, small, worn, real, to buy coffee. The barista wrote my name on the cup without seeing it in some database of luxury contacts. No one stared at me like the wife from the viral video. No one whispered. No one filmed. It was the most ordinary experience of my life. And I clung to it like a lifeline. I took long walks by the Willamette River, watching cyclists fly past and dogs bark at ducks. People laughed openly, not in that brittle, performative way of charity galas or industry parties, but the kind of laughter that came from inside the ribs. Sometimes I'd sit on a bench with a notebook, jotting thoughts without pressure or fear of someone looking over my shoulder. I wrote down things I hadn't dared say out loud during the investigation. I'm allowed to exist. I don't need permission to take up space. My story isn't something he gets to edit. After years of living like a character in someone else's performance, the return to my own humanity felt both fragile and monumental. Work came quietly. Not glamorous, not dramatic, just steady. I accepted a position as a grant writer for a nonprofit supporting women affected by financial abuse, coercion, and economic control, women who had lived in shadows similar to mine, women who had been told their own signatures didn't belong to them. The first time I sat across from a survivor, a woman named Kelly, with tired eyes and a voice barely above a whisper, I felt something inside my chest shift. She told me about her ex-husband draining her accounts, her credit ruined, her identity used as leverage. I'm trying to start over, she said. But I don't know who I am without him. I reached across the table, steadying my voice. You get to choose, I said. And nobody gets to rewrite your choices again. Her eyes filled. Mine almost did, too. I volunteered at the community center on weekends, helping kids with reading programs, teaching simple breathing exercises to anxious teens, planting little pots of herbs on the back patio. Children have a way of telling the truth without meaning to. They reminded me that life doesn't have to be calculated or weaponized. It can be noisy, unpredictable, and sweet. Slowly, the rituals came back. Morning coffee on the balcony, evening walks past the art murals, cooking simple dinners with soft music playing, letting the apartment smell like garlic and basil instead of cold eucalyptus candles. Some nights, I practiced piano again on a secondhand keyboard I bought off Marketplace, hesitant at first, then braver. The notes were shaky, imperfect, but honest. And in that quiet little apartment, honesty felt like luxury. There were days I woke with a jolt, expecting chaos, expecting accusation, expecting the familiar tightening in my stomach that came every time Ethan entered a room. Trauma doesn't dissolve with a conviction. It lingers, tapping your shoulder at the most inconvenient hours. But each time I felt the past claw at me, I'd ground myself, touch the balcony railing, sip warm coffee, feel my breath, say my name out loud. My name is Lauren Pierce, not Lauren Cole, not the identity he built, not the version he rehearsed destroying. My name, my choosing, my life. The trial came and went like a slow-moving avalanche, predictable, unstoppable, devastating only to the ones who deserved it. The evidence was overwhelming. Ethan's lawyers tried their best, but no narrative could survive the sheer weight of truth. 12 years. That was his sentence. Marco got 15. Jordan, with full cooperation, received 5 and mandatory probation after release. When the judge read the verdict, something in me settled. Not joy, not victory. Just closure, a gate closing softly, firmly, permanently. But the world didn't suddenly bloom with fireworks. Healing isn't theatrical. It's quiet. It's daily. It's choosing peace in moments where your body remembers war. And daily, I chose peace. Again and again. Summer arrived slowly in Portland, unfolding like a soft apology after years of winters I didn't know I'd been living through. By July, the river shimmered at dusk, casting peach-colored reflections against the apartment windows. Kids splashed at Selwood Park. Couples picnicked along the East Bank Trail. Life moved forward in small, stubborn ways. So did I. One evening, after finishing a long grant proposal, I stepped onto the balcony with my white ceramic mug, the same brand Ethan once filled for me every morning. Except now the cup wasn't a symbol of a routine he controlled. Now it was a symbol of a ritual I rebuilt. Steam curled from the surface, rising into the warm air. Below me, the city buzzed with weekend sounds, distant music, laughter drifting from patios, the occasional rumble of a streetcar. Ordinary noise, the kind that doesn't demand anything from you. I leaned against the railing, letting the warmth of the cup seep into my hands, letting the breeze brush against my face, letting myself be still. Somewhere down the block, someone strummed a guitar. The chords were uneven but sincere. It reminded me of how my own healing felt messy, imperfect, but real. My phone buzzed beside me. A text from Jenna. Official notice. Restitution approved. You're free of liability. Completely. I stared at the message for a long time. There it was. The last thread cut. For so long, my life had been tied to Ethan's choices financially, legally, emotionally, psychologically. Even after his conviction, paperwork and processes lingered like echoes, but now, the echo finally faded. I set the phone down and exhaled into the warm summer air. Free. Not the dramatic kind of freedom with fireworks or champagne. The quiet kind like unclenching a fist you didn't realize had been tight for years. Later that night, I walked to the river. The path glowed under street lamps, casting long ribbons of light across the pavement. People passed me in pairs or small groups, talking about groceries, shows they were watching, upcoming vacations. None of them recognized me. None of them knew my story unless they had seen the trial coverage. And even then they didn't stare. I liked it that way. I sat on a bench overlooking the water. The city lights rippled along the surface, stretching into moving gold streaks. A soft breeze rolled off the river, carrying the scent of pine trees mixed with distant restaurant kitchens. I closed my eyes. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel dangerous. It felt earned. My mind drifted not to the betrayal, not to the warehouse, not to the trial, but to the strange moments of rebirth in between. Teaching kids to breathe through anxiety, helping survivors fill out aid applications, feeling the soil under my nails while planting herbs, laughing again unexpectedly, loudly, when Sam sent a ridiculous meme, sitting in Jenna's office, eating takeout after a long prep session, hearing Noah casually mention he'd started dating someone new, then blushing when we teased him. Life had expanded in places I never thought it would. And yet, part of me wondered quietly, honestly whether everything I went through had rewritten me too much to return to any old version of myself. Maybe it had. Maybe that was the point. When I opened my eyes again, the river was still there. Steady. Moving. Carrying the reflections of buildings that would look different tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. I whispered into the night, as if testing the words. They didn't break me. The wind carried the words across the water. I said them again, stronger this time. They didn't break me, end quote. And then, the truth that had been waiting inside me, the one that lived beneath the scars, beneath the caution, beneath the quiet rage, they built me. Not Ethan, not Marco, not Jordan, not the system, but everything I survived, every truth I uncovered, every boundary I rebuilt, every piece of myself I refused to let them erase. I let the words settle in my chest, warm and steady. The revenge wasn't watching them fall. It was realizing I didn't need them to stand. When I finally walked home, the air felt lighter. My steps felt grounded. My heart felt mine. Back on the balcony, the mug sat where I left it, still warm. I picked it up and took a sip, smooth, simple coffee, the way I liked it. A drink that used to symbolize service, now a symbol of autonomy. Inside, my laptop chimed. An email notification. Subject line, grant approved. I smiled small, quiet, real, and closed the lid. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and help someone else start again. Tomorrow, I'd continue building a life untouched by manipulation. Tomorrow, I'd honor the version of me who once sat alone in a dark kitchen, holding on to hope by a thread. But tonight I stood alone on my balcony, bathed in the soft glow of Portland's skyline, breathing a kind of peace only earned through fire. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own story, trust me, the story isn't over. Not for you, not for me, not yet. And if you're watching this, if you stayed with me through all the twists and shadows, then come closer for a moment, because I want you to hear this clearly. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, subscribe. This story isn't over.